Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the podcast today, we have Lee Houghton. Lee, welcome.
Thanks very much, Thomas. How are you?
Brilliant. What about yourself?
Yeah, no, really good, really good. Thank you. And really looking forward to this conversation with you today. So thank you for the opportunity.
Good, my pleasure. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, I think the only challenge with that is you said take a moment. So because myself is my favourite subject sometimes, so I'll try to keep this as short as possible. So for the last 15, 16 years, I've been working in the business improvement space. So as an internal and an external improvement consultant, helping individuals, teams, and businesses get better at what they do. And I always remember actually when I told my best mates. On a Wednesday night when I went into the pub that I'd just got this type of job. They said to me, "Oh, one of them, are you?" I said, "What do you mean one of them?" "One of them who go into where people work and tell them how to do their job better. If you came into where I work and tell me how to do my job better, I'd tell you to go away," or words to that effect. And really, for the last 15 or 16 years, I've been trying to understand how to navigate change. If my best mate wouldn't allow me to help him get better, then how can random strangers? So yes, that's what I do. 2.5 years ago, me and my business partner set up our own business because we think there's a more people-centric way to deliver change. So we did that 2.5 years ago, called Get Knowledge, and from then we've been in the middle of a pandemic, but coming out of it far stronger and onwards and upwards. So yeah, business improvement is what I do. But it's with a people lens, really, because I think people are amazing and so different and varied. So yeah, that's me, and hopefully that was a moment.
That was great. Thank you for the introduction. Although I do have to ask, you mentioned where you started, which was, this is what I'm doing. But and then you said you got to learn more about being able to help people. What did you learn in terms of, how do you help people now?
Okay, I know.
What are your strategies?
Yeah, okay. So there's two. So what business change has allowed me to? So I think my job is the best and worst job I've ever had, and it's change and leadership. I think can be the loneliest role in the world. If you're the only person that's like pushing the boulder uphill and you're trying to get people to recognize that things can be better and people don't want to change. Then it's the best and worst thing. So I've been on quite a reflective period over the last probably 2 years, where I've tried to unpick and understand what is successful change. And for me, it comes down to the first thing is change starts with you as a person. So if you're a leader and you kind of go in and go, okay, we need to be better, we need to make more money, then I think the leadership team needs to do something different, not just expect everybody else to change. So for me, change starts with you. I think we all need to recognize that our thoughts drive our behaviors as well, and how we react to certain circumstances casts a shadow across other people. So that's the people-centric stuff. But ultimately, business change is about organized teamwork. And I think if you ask everybody, they will say that they're part of a team. But are you truly part of a team that's got organized teamwork, that's high trust? Conflict is a healthy thing and an unhealthy thing. And do you have the right conversations to help you solve the right problems? A lot of consultants go in and try to teach people how to solve problems. I think what we try to do is try to create the right conversations so that you can solve the right problems. So that's what I think the secret of it all is. People comes back to people, but creating the right environment, creating the right conversations, and working together to solve those challenges that you face.
Well, I do want to ask you about your story, but from a selfish point of view, you mentioned about resolving conflict. It's not something that I'm particularly good at. So, what can you share on, the ability to overcome conflict in terms of it's a positive thing, not a negative thing?
So I think it comes from the place of what is causing the conflict. So do you have a situation that you're thinking about at this moment in time, Thomas, or not?
Have you ever heard of the term conflict averse?
Just elaborate a little bit for me.
So it's kind of like the person who will, rather than, it's basically being too agreeable. So there are some people who don't mind, they'll be disagreeable and they won't, they won't think about how you're going to feel about pretty much anything. And then there's basically people who are too agreeable, where they'll just, I would like to go with anything that you want to go with, until the point where, I can't actually, when I say one can't actually disagree properly without fearing a break in a relationship in some fashion. Never learned how to do it, essentially.
Okay, got you. No, it makes perfect sense, because I've been on a very similar journey, and I think when I realised that actually my priorities are just as important as everybody else's, then, and because I'm naturally a helper, and I like to help, bend over backwards and help people, but you can't always help people. So I think it depends on the relationship that you've got with those people, and how trusting a relationship that you've got. I do an exercise, or Stephen Covey wrote a book called The Speed of Trust, and in that he articulates there's 13 high trust behaviors, and I've got this score sheet, and it's got the 13 high trust behaviors, and a description for each of them, like talking straight and listening first, and confronting reality, and then you score 1 to 10 about how high you believe you are at these things. And I encourage people to then go, the person that you want to have a better and more stronger relationship with, get them to score you on the same context, and in the same context that you've scored yourself, whether it be a relationship just between that person, or whether it be a situation, and then have a conversation with that person. Because I think the level of relationship that you have with the people, with people, will help that conflict be overcome easier. So, in fact, actually, just to digress a little bit, I went on a stand-up comedy course. I've been on 2 stand-up comedy courses now. It doesn't come across in anything that I'm saying. Apologies for that, but I am a work in progress. And the first stand-up comedy course I went on in August last year, we started, and the guy delivering the course, he said, "What's the most important thing in comedy?" And the 7 of us on the course, we all shouted back, "Jokes!" And he was like, "No, jokes is like the material." He said, "That's the 3rd most important thing in comedy." He said, "The most important thing in comedy is connection with the audience, and then it's performance." So in comedy, there's 2 lines. There's a setup and a punchline. And he says what comedians do, they differentiate their attitude between the setup and the punchline to make it easier for the audience to pick out when they need to laugh, so they don't need to think about it. And he said, think about connection for a minute. So you've got a young child, and I've got a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and they've started doing like nativity plays at school and things. And I remember being in nativity plays when I was at school. And if I think about nativity plays, they are filled with children who are wearing various quality of outfits. It's arguably terrible singing. They forget the words. They stand in the wrong place. They all dance out of sync. It's not an award-winning performance by any stretch of the imagination. But at the end of it, they will get a standing ovation where everybody in the audience will be really tearful. But it's the worst performance that anybody has ever seen. But for those people that's in the audience, they've got that level of emotion. And it's because their level of connection with the people that's on stage is so strong that, so if connection is the most important thing in comedy, performance is the second most, and material is the third. In this example, performance is shocking, material is dodgy, but the level of connection is so strong. So to answer the question that you actually asked me, Thomas, I would say that if the relationship is strong enough with the person and the connection is there, and it's a trusting relationship and you've had those conversations, then it's far easier to have that positive conflict, because you both know where you're coming from, and you can overcome that. If you don't have a strong relationship and connection with the people that are asking you to do things, then that's when the self-doubt and the conversation starts in your head. And I think it's about then understanding what that voice in your head is saying to you, and how you can reframe some of the things and create a more positively framed voice to allow you to navigate through it. I mean, we could turn this into a coaching session if you like, Thomas, and I'll gladly go through those stages and steps. But that's what I would suggest first. Is depends on the person and how much of a strong relationship you have or want with that person. And then if you don't want the strong relationship with that person, then it's the strength of relationship with yourself and the narrative that you're telling yourself about those things that we need to overcome.
It's a great answer. Just to elaborate on something you touched upon, the issue, I think the issue sometimes is that like the other person in that relationship sometimes doesn't quite know where they stand because like me in this particular instance is too agreeable. So you're not being, for lack of a better term, your authentic self. Yeah. If you were being completely transparent about what you wanted, then the other person would know where they stood.
Yeah.
But because you're so agreeable, they actually don't.
No, that's it. To them, you're not, and there's no issues for you because you're just doing it. So why would they stop asking? And I think that's why it's a relation. It's understanding the relationship with that person, but then also your relationship with yourself. And actually, you do count. You do have priorities, and what are you saying no to? Because for yourself, that you're saying yes to for the other people, if that makes sense. What you put, yeah. But you're important as well, Thomas.
Well, I could quite easily just keep continuing the conversation as it is because I think it's interesting. But I do want to ask you about your story because I think it would be beneficial to the audience. So, how does it begin?
How does this start? Once upon a time. So, I think I've had a pivotal moment in my life that has been this catalyst that has. Before that, I didn't have my business. And I think for the last 3 years, my journey has been far more progressed than it had been for the previous years whilst I've been here. And I guess actually to start the story, Thomas, do you have a friend that if you've not seen for a week or a month or a few months, that when you get back together, it's like you've not had that gap and that period in between?
Yeah.
So, and every time I ask that question, people always answer yes. And I've got a friend like that, a guy called Chris. And it was about 3 years ago now, just shy of 3 years ago, when I received a call. I was working as an employed consultant, and I was working on a site in London. I got a call to say that Chris had taken a turn for the worst. And in fact, actually, when we started our conversation today, Chris was the person that said to me, if you come in and tell me how to do my job better, I'll tell you to go away. Anyway, so about just shy of 3 years ago, I got this phone call whilst working on his client site in London to say that he'd taken a turn for the worse and I needed to come home. So I got on the train at London Euston, headed north, got out at Preston and got in a taxi and went over to the hospice where he was. And I went into the room and he was there and he was visibly paler than he was just 3 days previous when I'd left. And in the room was his sister, his ex-partner, and one of our other friends. I agreed to stay the night with him that night. And so I set up camp on the couch, sent everybody else away, and dabbed his lips during the night and stuff like that. He was suffering. It was his third bout of cancer, age 39, and yeah, he was visibly weaker than he was just a few days before. So anyway, 10 to 8 in the morning, I sat up after having some really amazing conversations with him through the night about old times and stuff. 10 to 8 in the morning, I said, right, Chris, I'm just going to go to the bathroom because my breakfast is due in a minute. So I went into the bathroom, brushed my teeth, had a wash and came back out. And on leaving the bathroom, I looked over at him and his chest expanded. And that was it. He didn't move again. He'd chosen that moment to leave. And why I think that's an important part of this story is because when he was told that medical science could do no more for him and it was just about keeping him comfortable, I was the first person to see him when the consultant left his room and we got chatting. And he looked over at me and said, do you think I'll know when the time is, Lee? I says, I've got no idea, Chris. And there was another nurse in the room and she went, some people believe and some people don't believe. And he looked over at me and he went, I'll let you know, Lee. I'll let you know. Right. So I was a non-believer before that moment. I was a non-believer before his chest expanded and stuff. And on reflection, and I've joined those two things together. I'm going, blimmin' heck, I think he was telling me that he knew that he was going, which is crazy for me to say out loud. Anyway, so after his chest expanded, I made a few phone calls and told everybody that had happened. And I went and sat outside. The sun was beating down, and I sat on a bench, and I was thinking to myself that you're a fraud, Lee. you tell your kids every single morning that they can be whatever they want to be when they grow up, and you're not being everything you want to be. You don't have your own business. You're not living your dreams and stuff. And I then thought about the 3 lessons that Chris shared with me, because, and I'm so grateful for this. He was extracting his pension from his employer so he could set up a bigger trust fund for his two boys, and he said to me, he said, "How much money would you like, Lee? Because you've always wanted to have your own business. If I can play a part in that, then I'd love to do it." I was like, "No, I don't want that, Chris. What I would like actually though is 3 lessons through your eyes, because your perspective on life has changed." And the reason why his perspective on life has changed, do you follow football, Thomas?
I used to.
You used to? Okay, so we support Liverpool, and there was a Champions League final when Liverpool played Real Madrid, and Gareth Bale won it, and Chris came round to my house that night. He was ill, but he drove around with his 2 boys, and we'd agreed to watch it. And on the way round to the house, there's a roundabout at the bottom of my drive, and he came round and he got to my front door. And he said, "You'll never guess what happened." I said, "What?" He said, "A car pulled out on me on the roundabout." I said, "Oh, here we go again. What did you do, Chris?" He went, "I did nothing." I said, "What do you mean you did nothing?" He said, "Yeah, I did nothing. It doesn't matter, does it?" Because Chris was always one of those people that if somebody pulled out in front of him, he'd be like flicking the V's out the window, screaming, shouting, hand on the horn, following them bumper to bumper all the way back to their house or whatever, and then just drive off. And he went, "I did nothing." And that stuck in my mind. So when he offered me money to set up in business, and then I was like, no, for something said to me, just like his perspective has changed. So asking for free lessons. So I did. And I'm so grateful I did, because they've been life-changing. And he was like, "Bloody hell, Lee, I wish you'd just asked for the money. That'd be far easier, but I'll think about them." Anyway, so a couple of weeks had passed. I went to the hospital to see him at the time. And he went, "Right, Lee, I've got the first lesson for you." He said, when him and his ex-partner were splitting up, he said, "I tried to be somebody that I thought she wanted me to be." He said, "I tried to be somebody that would maintain the relationship." And he said, "It didn't make me happy. It didn't make her happy. And we still ended up splitting up." So he said, no matter what in life, just always be yourself. And we've touched on this earlier in the conversation about authenticity, being yourself, and the situation, what you spoke about, Thomas, and the resilience, or the overcoming and just saying no and yes and stuff, and thoughts driving behavior. So over the last 2.5 years, I've really got into this. What is always being myself? And 10 years ago, I got my first tattoo, 2 inches down my wrist. I asked them to start it because I was worried about what people would say to me. What would people think of the bald northern bloke with tattoos? And now I don't care. So I think always being yourself is so much more than it's everything. That was his first lesson. That was his first reaction. And I think that now on my wrist is a metaphor for that I didn't used to be myself. And I'm now consciously trying to be myself in more situations. A few weeks then passed, and I went back to see him. And he said, you come and visit me when you're not on a client site. One of our other friends rings him at 12 o'clock every single day. He says, when we were growing up, we could have chosen different paths and different friends and stuff. We were best mates from the age of 1. He was best man at my wedding. He was godfather to my youngest. And we went to different schools. He said, we could have gone on different paths, but we didn't. He said, if we'd gone on different paths, those friends might not have been here now. So he said, the second most important thing in life is to make good friends, because you never know when you're going to need them, or you never know when they're going to need you. So that was the second one. And I think that touches on what we've just been talking about there, because I think that is not just friends, it's connections, it's relationships. It's just make better and stronger relationships. And that's why I think I've kind of hooked onto this stand-up comedy lesson about connection being first, because for me, it's just making a stronger connection with as many people as possible, because you never know when they might need you, or you never know when you might need them. So that was the second one. And then about 2 or 3 weeks before he passed, we had the opportunity to break him out of the hospice, and we went to watch the Foo Fighters at the Etihad Stadium. It sounds grander than it was. We didn't break him out. They knew we were taking him. And there was 8 of us that went. We went in 2 cars. Chris and his ex-partner and the 2 boys, 14 and 16 at the time, went in 1 car, and 4 of us went in another car. And on the way home from that, his boys dropped him off at the hospice, and on the way home, his youngest said, "Is it too late for my dad to take me to Anfield to go for a tour?" So that was on a Thursday, and then on the Sunday, I'd arranged the tour. We went, me, my boy who was 4 at the time, Chris and his 2 boys, and we had an amazing day. We had ice cream outside, a private tour, as much time as we wanted. We all bought kits and stuff, and then on the way home from there, he looked over at me, the 3 boys sat behind. He said, "How many times could we have done this?" I said, "Yeah, we could have done it." He said, "Well, why did we wait until I was in a wheelchair? Why did we wait until I couldn't get out of the wheelchair and sit on the same seats that you did?" He said, "Time's limited, so act now." And that was the 3rd lesson. And so fast forward then to when I was sat on that bench and I'm going, always be yourself, make good friends, and time's limited. Those are what I've been trying to understand, what they mean to me over the last 3 years, because Chris had his reasons for choosing those 3 things, which is what I've just shared there. But I've been trying to understand those on a far deeper level and trying to go, if somebody at 39 years old is reflecting on their life and they think that removing everything from it, that those are the 3 most important things, what do they mean to me, and how can I internalize them to try to live those 3 things? Because my biggest regret is losing Chris to start my life. And if I can help other people by sharing those 3 things and maybe just sparking a thought with other people, then that's success. If I can share Chris's message and help other people realize what's important, then yeah. So Thomas, that is the story. Those are the 3 lessons, and thank you for letting me share that with you.
Oh, it's an amazing story. I mean, it's a bit 39 is too young, isn't it, to be in that position? But the lessons are great. And I think you sharing it, I mean, I don't know how tough it is for you, but I think you sharing it is extremely valuable for people. I think people do struggle to be themselves sometimes. What's the term? Like pleasers. People sometimes are pleasers. And I love the tattoo metaphor.
Yeah.
How else have you sort of changed your life in order to adhere to the rules?
Yeah, great question. So I've started to share the story. So I used to deal with everything myself, and I used to deal with everything in my head, and I thought I could deal with everything in my head. But losing Chris, it told me that I couldn't deal, because that was quite a dark period. But what I've realized is that I can, if I write stuff down, if I get it out of my head, that allows me then to move on and make something positive from that situation. So what I used to do was just keep everything here, but now I try to express and share it. So you said about how difficult is it to talk about it. Right at the very start, it was impossible to talk about it. The more that I talk about it, the more it allows me to live with Chris. I do a course actually called Creating Confident People Leaders. And when I created that course, it's based on the foundation of Chris's 3 lessons. And when I created it, I said, the reason for me creating this course is because I want to share Chris's 3 lessons. But really, on reflection, the reason why I want to share Chris's 3 lessons and talk about them as often as I do is because I don't want to lose him for a second time. So I don't want to go through that grief period again. But it also allows him to be with me, because I know as soon as I press end on this call, there'll be times and stuff, and I get to reflect about some of the stuff that we did together and stuff like that. So this allows me to constantly live with him. I've got tattoos on my left arm of a little ginger kid walking up some steps at 10 to 8 in the morning. On the outside of my left arm, I've got the 3 lessons. And what Chris did actually before he passed, he bought me a ring that I wear on my right hand, and engraved in the center of this ring are the 3 lessons as well. So I can't say how much things have changed, but things have changed drastically. Like set up my own business, which I'd never had the balls to do before, with my business partner Jason. I've skydived from 15,000 feet. When I was growing up, I was too nervous to jump off the wall at the back of my mum and dad's house. I've done 2 stand-up comedy courses, and I've started to write my own material and try to stand in front of people and tell jokes. Crazy. So I think I think I'm trying now to worry less and do more. But it comes down to what we were saying earlier on, actually, about understanding how thoughts drive behavior, and actually just trying to really, so always being yourself really is control of this voice in your head. And is it helping me or hindering me in different situations? And so I think the biggest lesson I've had is really understand how I'm helping or hindering myself in what I'm saying to myself. And I'm trying to be better at that. So loads has changed, loads has happened. And I've started living after losing him. And that's my biggest regret as well.
What about making connections? Because I've interpreted that those are the ways that you've done number 1 and number 3.
Yes.
What about number 2?
Yeah. So I have got quite a large network on LinkedIn, but I don't know the people that are on LinkedIn. I've just got a large network, but who I don't really know. I've started reaching out to those and having random conversations. When I send connection requests, I'll try to follow up with a couple of messages, because you don't know where those connections are going to go. I've consciously the one that I'm weakest in completely, honestly, is the second one, because I've always been I've always been somebody who has been really comfortable, like standing on stage and talking, but then in groups of people, I'm not the loudest one. So I've always been like the person that's like that, like just lets the conversation go. So the one that I struggle with most is making stronger connections. It doesn't come as natural to me. But what I am consciously trying to do is to reach out to more people, to engage with more people, to do things with more people when we're going to be allowed to. And I think this COVID period has probably been a big challenge for me. And what it's shown, actually, I was in a room for the first time with people last week, and I've really missed people, and I didn't realize how much I'd missed people, and I didn't think I would miss people as much as I have. So I think that's the one I need to work most on, is connecting with people, and I can't wait to give people a hug next week. But I would never have said that before. So I think something has happened where I'm more in touch with my feelings and more in touch with my emotions and stuff. And I'm going to become a hugger. I'm sorry, everybody, but yeah, I'm going to become a hugger. And that's the one I need to work on most, because I think the more connected we are, the better and richer we are as well.
Would you say, because I mean, everything you said about connecting with people pretty much applies to me. Would you say that you look more for less meaningful connections or friendships than you do a high volume of less meaningful ones? Because that's me for sure.
Yeah. I don't have a vast network of friends. I want to have more meaningful relationships with a few more people. It's weird, isn't it? Right? Because I feel like there's like 13,000 connections on LinkedIn and stuff, and like people can see my profile and think that I'm quite an outgoing person, and I am. When it's me and when I'm in control of the situation, but when it's like a group of people, I'm not the most outgoing person at all. And I think what I need to work on is deeper connections and relationships with a smaller amount of people first, and then grow that. Because I think what I'm not very good at is keeping in contact with people in a meaningful way. So sometimes I will only reach out to people when I've got a question to ask, or when there's something I need to understand and know. and what I'm not good at, which I'm consciously trying to, is reaching out to people just to say hello. That's all right, rather than waiting until there's a point in time when I need something. So I'm not sure if I've answered your question there, but that's probably that's where I am with that. I need to have more genuine relationships rather than needy relationship built on need, as opposed to I need to have more genuine, honest relationships.
Well, there's a especially if you're competent and independent. If you only reach out when you need something, that means you don't reach out very often. But I feel like there might be a how-to in that, in the sense that if you had some how-to knowledge or some examples of how you do that, might be a bit easier. Because I'm the same. I don't tend to reach out well. It's like, how you doing?
Yeah,
that's all there is to it. But I got a tough one for you, I think. So I'm hoping that you haven't been asked this before. And yeah, let's see how you get on with it.
All right, okay.
If the tables were turned and it was you in the bed and Chris was the one that was going on and you had to give him 3 lessons, what would you have said?
That's a bloody amazing question. And I've never been asked that question before. The easy answer to give is I would give the same 3 things, but I'm biased now by my last 2.5 to 3 years understanding the importance of those 3 things. So I've asked my dad the same question. He's not ill or out, but I was just curious if my dad's had more years here, and his answers aren't as deep as Chris's yet. But I mean, Andy's only come up with one thing so far, and what my dad said is just do to others as you would want to do to yourself, or whatever the saying is. And so yeah, treat others how you want to be treated yourself, type of thing is what my dad said. But what I like about Chris is, because my dad didn't have any specific reason or answer for that. It's just he's not had any. There was no story that he attached to that particular lesson. But what Chris did is he reflected on his life, and he thought about the things that had happened to him, and he came up with them. So I would like to say, there has to be this, and I'm kind of contradicting my previous answer. So it's the importance of people. So people are the most important thing in the world. I would say I've only got one for you at the minute, and that would be is something along the lines of the importance of people, because the secret of successful change is not, people look at IT and stuff as a silver bullet, but it's not. It's engaged people and highly engaged people and trusting people and relationships and stuff. So I would say something to you, Thomas, around the importance of, don't play down the value of people, which I am doing and I'm guilty of doing, and I'm kicking myself under the table now for giving that as one of my lessons, but it's one that I'm not living as honestly and truly as I need to. So yeah, I've only got one for you at the minute, but I'll come back to you with the others. I will have a think about it, actually, because I've never asked myself that question.
Oh, thank you for having a go at it anyway.
Yeah, no, thank you, Thomas. No, thank you for the question. I genuinely mean that as well, because I'm busy spouting Chris's free, because I'm all in on him, and genuinely believe and want to understand him so deeply. But yeah, I've never really thought about what based on my experience and life, what would be the lessons for me. But yeah, something about people, the importance of people. Don't play down that.
Good. If you wanted to, I mean, I don't have them prepared, but if you wanted to, you could turn the table around on me now if you wanted to. But
so, Thomas, if you had to choose 3 life lessons, what would they be and why?
Well, like in the same way that you have, I think one comes to mind, which I think is particularly, I would call it perhaps profound. Everyone's, or a lot of people tend to say, that they want to be happy. Like I just want to be happy. I'm looking for happiness, but I learned from somewhere. I'm not 100% sure where, but I think it's like Nietzsche or something like that, and he would say, don't search for happiness because you can't always have that. Like there's going to be instances where it's not possible to be happy. Like a funeral is an example of that. So don't search for happiness, search for meaning, because meaning will keep you going. So it's a good example. Your lessons are a good example of that. So they're highly meaningful. And if you can share them with other people, pursue meaning. I like that one.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's a great one. It's a great one. And in fact, actually, you've just sparked a thought. What my second one could be is, I think in Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul, I think he introduces an equation. It's E plus R equals O, events plus reaction equals outcome. And there's an argument to say that all events in this world are neutral. And I think, well, I believe that. It's just our reaction that determines whether it's a positive and negative outcome. So because all events have happened, so I think there's something around, you can't change what's just happened. You can only change your reaction to what's happened to make it a more positive thing. So the thing that happened to Chris, horrific, horrendous, worst time of my life. But hopefully my reaction to that now is a positive one, and hopefully I'm helping people with it. So I think that would be another one for me. What would your second one be?
Well, I can. You've given me inspiration for the second one. So it's a Jim Rohn quote, and Jim would say, "The same wind blows on us all, but it's not the wind which determines where you go in life. It's the set of the sail."
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I love that. Hey, quite deep, this, isn't it?
I mean, we have to take it off in a less meaningful direction. We need to talk about Instagram or something.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. No. Thank you for sharing them. I think those are really powerful, really good. I like them.
So, in a less meaningful, direction, let's say someone inquires with you. What does that look like? What do they say typically, and what's the process?
So, is this inquires in terms of working? If somebody wants to work with me, is that the yeah? So, there's a couple of ways that people typically reach out for help and support. So like I said, I've got a couple of courses, which is creating confident people leaders and creating confident change leaders, which are group coaching programs, because people, I think, in business, you can only really talk to the people that you work with. And I want to try to create a network where actually that people recognize that the problem that I've got in company A is the same challenge that somebody's got in company B. So I've created these group coaching programs to help leaders, whether it's people and change, come together and normalize some of those situations. So they would say, I want to be a more confident leader. I want to be able to, I want to be a more confident leader for the group coaching stuff. But the main core of the business of what we do is typical or operational excellence, business improvement type things. So if somebody has got a cost challenge, an engagement challenge, a customer satisfaction challenge, then we can, and what we do is we work with the team or teams and departments to align them to a common purpose, and then working towards achieving a better today than yesterday. So those are typically the outcomes that we try to achieve, or that we do achieve, but where people come in from, it's either an individual on the group coaching stuff, or a business and a team on the kind of reducing your costs, improving your productivity, that type of stuff, but through people, and using Chris's 3 lessons as the kind of the foundation for it all, really.
So if someone had a team and they came to you because they're like, or like Lee, and I've got a team, what's your go-to? What would you think to go to first for improving a team?
So I would want to understand how that team works together. So our process is we start by we're called Get Knowledge. So, and it's not us getting knowledge. It's, well, we need to first understand the challenge that people are facing, see whether we're right and we're matched. But then ultimately we work with them, ask them questions to allow them to get knowledge about themselves so that they can then solve the problems themselves. So typically what we would do is understand how they currently communicate, what the current challenges are, and we would have a conversation about those, but then about how creating a more trusting environment. So there's a lot of businesses that roll out things like daily meetings, whiteboards, standard, all the like typical operational excellence elements, but we do it from a lens of getting the team to solve their own problems. So we'd have a conversation first, Thomas, I think, ultimately, and just understand where they are and whether they truly genuinely want to improve, or whether they're just improving because they're saying that that's what they should be doing. I'm quite comfortable to say I don't want to work with a business as well. If we don't believe collectively through the conversations that the environment is right, and that actually they're just expecting everybody else to improve. And like I said earlier on, right at the very start, actually, change starts with you, whether that's the most senior person in an organisation or an operator. Everybody's got to understand that. And it's actually using Chris's 3 lessons that we start those conversations in any engagement. We've got a course that we deliver that tries to lay the foundations for that successful improvement activity. But it finishes with Chris's 3 lessons and getting people to think that actually, are you creating an environment that allows people to be themselves? Are you making good friends across departments, within the team, within the different levels of hierarchy? And are you empowering and enabling everybody to recognize that actually they can make a difference now because time is limited? And so that's how we use Chris's 3 lessons, but in a business context as well.
What's your take on a corporate away day? I would imagine there's not too many of them at the moment. But on the one hand, I can see it as being an exercise which might be valuable for friendships. And on the other hand, I can see it as like a complete waste of time. So I'd like to get your thoughts on how effective you think that is.
Yeah, I've been to 2 different types of away days, and if it's done if it's just an away day where you are presented to, and just spoken at, then nothing's going to change. If it's an away day where you are creating stronger connections and relationships and working together, then hopefully those relationships will then continue. So I think it depends on what problem you're trying to solve from the away day itself, and having clarity of that before you go into it, and then ultimately you're just trying to remove the work processes, bring in the people relationship stuff, and make those things stronger together. So yeah, so I've been to some shockers, but I've also been to some all right ones as well.
So it might be an idea that if you were planning that, get feedback from the people who are actually going to attend it.
Yes. Yeah, and have clarity of the reason for it. It's like there's a lot of things that happen in business that only happen because they think that it should happen. So like some places will survey their employees because they know that they need to have an employee engagement measure, but they'll only survey them after they've given them the bonus. So they'll have an annual bonus and an annual survey, and they'll come really close together. And you think, no shock there that everybody's engaged. You've just paid them a few grand for their hard work. So it comes down to what is the actual reason for doing it, not just to fiddle figures and make yourself feel better and massage your ego, but to genuinely care for the people that you're working with. So I think what you've just said there, Thomas, around asking everybody first, I think is a great first step in understanding where you want to get to collectively as a team as well.
Is there anything that you would like to share that I haven't asked you about today?
Oh, it's a really good question. Hey, where'd you get your questions from?
There are a few, that one in particular, where I think maybe I haven't done everything I could have in terms of like value for the audience. So I do often ask that one because some people are like, I'm happy with the value I've given. And some people are like, I wish you'd have asked me about this because I really want to share this particular thing. So I'm basically, if there is anything that you can think that, I've learned this lesson and I really want to share that, then that's the reason I asked that question.
No, I think it's a really good question. And I think no, I don't have anything at the minute because I think we spoke about. I mean, we've gone on all sorts of different paths and tangents and stuff. I think the 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 importance of people for me is just hopefully that's come across strong enough, and that the importance of people and change starts with you. Those are the two key things really, and with in conjunction with Chris's 3 lessons. So there's nothing else, Thomas. But thank you for the question as well.
In terms of changing yourself, like I think some people have good intentions around that particular topic, but we all have our habits that we go into. Have you got any thoughts on something that you can apply where you can actually change yourself? Because I like the be yourself side of things, but I can, as much as I like it, I can see myself going exactly back to the way I was before. So have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So the only thing I think it's got to be staying true. So staying true to yourself. So changing yourself, but within the context of who you are, and from a view of just getting to know yourself better to allow yourself to change. Because some people change themselves. So like Chris changed himself to try to be somebody to make somebody else happy. And I don't think that's the right way to change yourself. So it's got to be true and genuine to who you are, what you value. So I think first, understanding your values, understanding what's important to you. And then it comes back down to what I've mentioned a few times is truly understanding what that voice in your head is saying to you in different situations. And if you can get a grip of so what on the creating confident courses, we go through a bit of a process where I ask people to go away and do a bit of homework and they identify a situation that they want to improve on, and I get them to then consider going through this process. If they're going to, so it might be like public speaking or something, or jumping out of an aeroplane or whatever, and before they're about to, so if they were to then put themselves in a place where they now need to speak, what's the voice in their head saying to them just before they go and speak? What's that doubt saying to them in their mind, and write it down. And whilst they're speaking, write down what that voice in your head is saying to you. And then after you've finished, write down what the voice in your head is saying to you. Because what you'll find is that what we think, our thoughts drive our behaviors, but we focus on our behaviors and try to change those. But it's actually the thoughts that we need to change, because it's cyclical. So I think by understanding truly what that voice in your head is saying to you before, during, and after the situation that you want to become more improved in, that's the first step. But then I think the second step is asking yourself, what's the genuine reason why you want to improve? Because you've got to have an emotional motivation to do it. And if you've not got the emotional motivation to do it, then the situation that you're in is not that bad. So really, why do you want to change? Because sometimes you can't just think stuff and better stuff will happen. You've got to be consistently thinking it, consistently doing it. And over time, you will be better at whatever it is you want to be better. So, and times it's difficult to do that. So and that's why your reason has got to be big enough to do it. And the only way to do that is to consider pleasure and pain. And is the pleasure that you're chasing massive, or are you trying to overcome some pain? And if you look at your reason and just question from a pleasure pain perspective, not from a just because you want to do a good job perspective, then I think that helps as well. So quite a long answer that one, Thomas. Apologies.
That's a good one. So would you like to share your goals?
Yeah, my goals are purely to. I've got a couple, but my main one is to get Chris's message and 3 lessons to outlive me, because, like you identified earlier on, taken far too soon. I want his 3 lessons to outlive me. That's my main goal.
Lee Houghton, where is the best place for people to find you?
Thomas Green, thank you very much. The best place is LinkedIn. That's where I am the majority of the time. I'll have a little green background on my little picture. So yeah, LinkedIn is the place. Or we've got a website. Our website is getknowledge.co.uk. That's where we put all the stuff on about the business stuff. But yeah, I'm on LinkedIn the majority of the time. So yeah, so thank you, Thomas.
Thank you. We had a great conversation, I thought.
Yeah, no, honestly, thank you so much for that. It was an absolute pleasure to chat with you.
It was my pleasure. I'll speak to you soon.
Cheers, Thomas.